What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute since I've recorded a talking video like this. I think the last time that I made a video where I was just talking at the camera and wasn't vlogging or doing something else like that was about 3 years ago, but I've been working to get my YouTube channel back up and running, so I figured it'd be a nice way to get things started by just talking to you guys, to the 15 to 20 people that actually watch my videos. And I thought today's video would be good to talk about my experience at an Ivy League school. So a lot of my videos in the past have been about how to get into your dream school or what it's like to be an athlete, just showing what it's like to be at an Ivy League. And now that I've graduated, I graduated about 3 months ago with a bachelor's in engineering and economics. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of reflect and look back on all the years that I spent at Brown. Brown was my dream school. It was a school that I always wanted to go to. And I feel really blessed and grateful to have the opportunity to go to Brown. And I learned a lot from the experience, and I want to share that experience with you guys. So just to give you a brief overview of some of the things that I want to talk about with my experience, I'm going to be talking about the social life. What's the social life at an Ivy League? The pressure. What is the pressure like being at an Ivy League? Networking. Something that I wasn't familiar with before going to school, but learning about the Ivy League network and how to leverage that was a huge learning experience for me, and I think is a big part of the Ivy League experience, so I want to share that. And then finally I want to talk about my experience being a black man at an Ivy League, which I definitely think shaped my experience in a way that could be different from others. Which leads me to my next point, which is that everything I say in this video is purely my own experience. I don't speak for everyone that went to an Ivy League. I don't even speak for everyone that went to Brown. Everything that I experienced and I went through with Brown was my own personal experience. People's opinions and experiences might have been different, so I just want to acknowledge that, and I don't want to appear as if I'm speaking for everybody. Without further ado, I want to just dive into it and start talking about my experiences, because even though it might be different, I still think it's valuable. So firstly, I want to talk about what it was like being a black student athlete at an Ivy League. So, like I mentioned before, this was something that really shaped my experience. For some people, the color of their skin, their race, ethnicity, other parts of their identity might not play a big role in their experience in academics or coursework or school in general, but for me it was a big experience, and that started playing a role in my life even before I stepped foot onto campus. So I applied early decision to Brown because it was my dream school and I knew that if I got in, I wanted to go there. So I found out that I was accepted in like November or December of my senior year of high school. So I knew really early on that I was getting in. And because I knew really early on that I was getting in, other people knew that I was getting in. And once people start to find out that I got into the school that was known for being selective and was known for being in the Ivy League, I got a lot of comments that were a little bit disrespectful, I'd say, and sometimes hurtful. Basically just comments that people would say to express their disbelief in the fact that I was able to get into a school like Brown. So as some of you may know from some of my other videos, I was an athlete. I ran track and field all 4 years at Brown, and I ran track throughout high school. So when I got into Brown, I got a lot of people asking me if the reason I got into Brown was from athletics, which is an understandable assumption, but I recognize that assumption came from the idea that I wasn't able to get in off of academics alone, which is not the case. I actually was not recruited to Brown, so I didn't receive any admissions help. I got in off of academics and actually had to walk onto the track team at Brown afterwards. So then when I did step foot on campus, I think that sense of feeling like I had something to prove continued. First and foremost, I'll say that there are not a lot of people of color at Brown, and the same goes for a lot of other predominantly white institutions that almost all, if not all, Ivy Leagues are. And the community of black people there was really small, so the representation was not there. Obviously there are black students, and I was able to form a great community with my other black students at Brown, but in respect to the rest of the brown population, we only made a small percentage. And then looking at the faculty, there was only maybe 2 professors that I've had in my entire 4 years at Brown that were black. And so I found that the lack of representation that I noticed once I did step foot on campus made me feel even more so like I had something to prove, and even contributed to a bit of imposter syndrome. Just being in classes where no one really looked like me, my professors didn't look like me, and I felt like I had to prove that I meant to be there. And to add on to that sense of not belonging, um, the same goes for any place where you're a minority, but there was a lot of cases of microaggressions and cases where I didn't necessarily feel comfortable or didn't necessarily feel like I was treated the way I wanted to be treated. Just to give a silly example, I would go to office hours with my professors for a class. You know, once or twice a week, professors would hold hours where students can come in, talk to the teacher, get homework help, work with other students, and get by in the class, right? And most students are at office hours every week if it's a difficult class, and a lot of my engineering courses were difficult. And I'd have professors that I'd go to their office hours every single week for homework help or to work with other students or just to better understand the material. And I've had professors that I've talked to and I've spoken to several times, and they know who I am and they know my name, but they would repeatedly confuse me for other students and mistake me for my other black classmates. And it was something that sometimes we would joke about, me and my friends, oh, this professor confused me for you or this or that. But at the same time, while we were able to make light of it and make jokes about it, it was something that was uncomfortable and didn't necessarily feel fair that because we were black, we weren't seen as important or whatever the case might be. But I felt like there was a little bit of lacking of respect in that case. But apart from the cases and examples of microaggressions or other things that might not have been ideal, that are just a sad part of the reality of being a minority or being black in the United States, I had a great experience being in the black community. I was fortunate enough to be in a black fraternity, which I found all of my best friends, some of my closest friends that I almost see as family, and had a great experience, honestly. And I'll talk more about the social life at Brown a little bit more. But besides that, I don't have many complaints being a black man at Brown. Overall, it was an overwhelming positive experience. I'm going to say that a lot because I had a really, really great experience at Brown. So I don't want it to seem like I'm just complaining or bashing the experience. I just want to make it aware or make it known that there are some challenges and that it wasn't always peachy keen or the most ideal experience because of my identity at Brown, but it was something that I was able to overcome and move on from and really focus on the positives, which is what I want to talk more about in this video. And to segue into more positives, the second thing I want to talk about is the networking opportunities. So I'd always heard about the Ivy League, and the Ivy League has a great alumni network, and the networking opportunities are expansive, but this was something that I never really understood how to tap into until my freshman year, the summer of my freshman year, when I started working on a research project with one of my professors. And as a part of this research project, I was reaching out to different people and meeting people, asking them questions about solar because my research was in the solar industry, and just talking to people. And very quickly I found how easy it was to talk to professionals in almost any industry and high-level working individuals just because they were in the alumni network. Some of the best relationships that I've made, best professional relationships, came from cold emails where I messaged someone, I told them I was a student at Brown and I just wanted to talk to them. And they were kind enough to lend me 20 or 30 minutes of their time where I was just able to pick their brain and ask them questions and learn a wealth of information that I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere. And just doing that over the years, just cold emailing people, reaching out, just brought in a wealth of opportunities. It allowed me to find jobs and find internships where if I know someone and I've talked to them and they know my interest, they're able to reach out to me when they find an opportunity and say, hey, I think you'd like this, why don't you check it out? Or the people that I might have talked to and introduced myself to might introduce me to other people that share my interest or can put me on to other opportunities, which has only expanded my network even more. And I think the most outstanding part of the networking at an Ivy League at Brown was the fact that because of where I went to school, people assumed that I was capable, or they assumed that I was smart, they assumed that I was competent and able to do complex tasks, and they assumed that I was highly motivated, which I believe is true. Like, I worked hard and I was highly motivated, but in a lot of cases I didn't even have to demonstrate my abilities. They just took it on the fact that I went to Brown and assumed the best of me. And that is something that not everyone has access to or has the privilege of having, just being able to introduce yourself to anyone and immediately they assume the best of you. And that is something that I definitely capitalized on. I wanted to make best use of. From the moment I stepped foot at Brown, I wanted to make the most of the opportunity. So the fact that people were going to assume the best of me, I wanted to make sure that I didn't let them down, and I leveraged all the opportunities that came from that reputation. So networking is something that I learned takes effort. I never regarded it as something that needed to be forced, or I needed to be like cutthroat or constantly networking so I can get job opportunities. For me, it seemed more natural, and this might have been a product of going to an Ivy League. But for me, it was very simple, just reaching out to people, asking them about their jobs, what their life is like, how someone like me can get into that industry. Basically just picking their brain and only asking for a few minutes of their time. And from that, opportunities usually arose, whether it was job opportunities, internship opportunities, research opportunities. Once that conversation was started and they knew that I was interested in that field and that I was capable of doing the work, if they had work to offer, then they would present opportunities after that. So for me, I thought that was great. And the other thing that I learned is that once you start networking and you start getting opportunities for meeting people, is that you have to pay it forward. So a lot of upperclassmen and alumni and people that I've met put me onto a lot of opportunities and introduced me to several people. And as I started to work my way up to being an upperclassman, and now that I'm an alumni, I always make an effort to help other people. So if I know that one of my friends who's an underclassman, or just anyone younger than me, is looking for an opportunity, or even people that are in my class or, on more of a peer level, if I know that they're in an industry or looking for a job or looking for an opportunity, and I know someone that I can connect them to, I'll always make the effort to connect them to. And that sort of mindset, I think, is shared amongst everyone in the Brown community. And I can't speak for every Ivy League, but I assume it's the same for most other places. And it just creates a cycle of opportunities and a cycle of helping each other and supporting each other by sharing names, sharing opportunities, and helping each other grow. Because it's not really a competition. Like, there's enough opportunity to go around for everyone. So if we can all help each other out and help each other achieve more, we're going to do that. And that's the experience that I've seen at Brown. And it's a life lesson and I guess a mindset that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. And I guess talking about networking is a good segue into talking about the social life. So the social life at an Ivy League, I'll just first off start by saying that the social life at an Ivy League is probably the same at most other colleges. It's not too much different from, any other college that you go to in the U.S. My friends had very similar experiences to me. I think some of the major differences that I've seen come from the fact that, one, the party culture is not as big as other schools. Again, I can only speak on behalf of Brown specifically. And while parties occur and people like to have fun on the weekends, it's not as prevalent as it might be in other places, just because, one, there's not as much to do around Providence, Rhode Island, but people are usually pretty focused and studying and are spending time at the libraries, which means that they don't have as much time to go out and party and have fun on the weekends. And while we do make sure we have time to have fun and enjoy ourselves, and people always find ways to do that. It's not always the focus, and because the coursework is so rigorous and so intense, a lot of times it's not even an option to have fun on the weekend or go out and stay out late, because if you do that, your coursework and your academics are going to suffer. But beyond just going out and having fun and partying, the one thing that I do want to say about the social life that I really enjoyed and that really stuck out to me was just how fascinating and interesting everyone was there. To get into an Ivy League, to get into Brown, you do have to be in the top pool of applicants. You have to have the good grades, the good test scores, you have to do all the extracurriculars, all of that. But to separate yourself from all the other applicants that have great grades, great test scores, and all of that, you have to have something interesting that you're passionate about that you work on outside of school. And all of these people bring those passions to campus. So I've met people that are artists, people that are entrepreneurs, people that have started clothing lines or bands, people that are rappers, people that are doing anything you could think of, authors, everybody. Any creative pursuit or outstanding pursuit or accolade that you can think of, you can find on campus, and people are extremely passionate about them. And for me, that was extremely inspiring to see people that are pursuing their passions and doing cool things outside of the classroom that are really impressive. It was just awesome to be around, and was a great space to be around because it motivated me to pursue my passions, to do things like starting YouTube, to finally self-publish a book, to work hard in the track. Just doing things that have nothing to do with school or grades or academics or even job opportunities or careers. Just things that are fun and cool to see other people doing. And the only other thing that I'll mention about the social life at an Ivy League or at Brown specifically, this kind of ties back to my experience being a black man at an Ivy League. And the one thing that I noticed and that my friends and I noticed while we were there is that the campus can be a little bit cliquey. I think we all identify as Brown students, and we all, for the most part, get along and share that same, I guess, like school culture and pride. But everyone like has their own groups, and I think that applies to most places. But the groups are pretty distinct. Like people of different racial backgrounds, different ethnic identities, all kind of just do everything together. If you're an athlete, you tend to hang out with people on your team, and there's usually some overlap, but for the most part, it is pretty cliquey. I know that I had very distinct friend groups. Yeah, there'd be some overlap, but it was pretty clear, like, okay, I'm hanging out with my fraternity brothers today, or I'm hanging out with my athlete friends today, like my track team today, my teammates. And I guess that wasn't necessarily good or bad. I was able to exist in different communities, which I enjoyed, but it was just something that I noticed that despite all being students at the same school, we still found our own little pockets and sub-communities while we were on campus. So the last thing I want to talk about is the pressure of being at an Ivy League. I wanted to save this topic for last because I felt like it was somewhat the heaviest, although it's not, that intense or that deep. But it was something that I think at Brown specifically wasn't talked about too much, because Brown has a reputation of being the happy Ivy, and people are typically pretty happy and joyful most of the time, and there isn't too much of a stress culture. But being at an Ivy League, I think, comes with a lot of pressure. People expect the most of you and expect that you're going to go on to do great things and that you're going to succeed. And when you get to school, you find out very quickly that things are really, really hard. Most people that are at that school because they did extremely well in high school. They were valedictorian or got perfect scores on their SAT. But from the moment you get onto campus, especially for people that studied STEM or engineering or anything science or math related, and even in the humanities majors, the coursework is just not like high school. It's extremely difficult, and a lot of courses, weeder courses that are designed to make you fail or make you want to change your concentration get to a lot of people. So you're at this school and you feel like you have to perform to the same level that you performed in high school. People are accustomed to you succeeding and excelling at everything you do, and you're now starting to go to class where you don't understand what's going on. You have to go to office hours and seek additional help after school, which is something that you might not be used to. And you take your exams in engineering, for example. A lot of us took our first exams and got like 40s or 50s, and we were never used to or never had to get results like that back ever. Like I know before going to Brown, I don't think I ever scored below an 80. I never received anything below a B on a test, and I was failing exams. And even if you're not failing per se, it's still a challenge to do well and be at the top of your class. And even if you're doing average, it can seem like you're failing. But one thing that I'll mention is that most courses are graded on a curve, which means that basically, no matter how well you perform, even if you get an A in the class based off of the numbers, so you get a 90%, you get a grade, you're not necessarily just graded off of the straight number grade that you got, you're graded relative to your classmates. So if the majority of people in the class got A's, the curve might make it so that only the top 10% get A's. And even if you have a 90, they'll give you a B. I know that was the case for a lot of economics classes, which for me was always a little bit confusing why things were graded that way. But the reason I share that is because you still have to somewhat compete with the other people in your class. So just because you're doing well, if you're not doing as well as the other people in your class, that's taking the course with you at the same time, you still have to push yourself a little bit harder to make sure that you're keeping up and not falling behind. And in some courses that could be a good thing, because if everyone else is struggling and you're also struggling, then the curve is going to work in your favor because they're going to be a little bit more lenient with the grading. But if everyone's doing really well and you're not doing well, then the curve is going to hurt you and you're going to have to step up and do a little bit more work to keep up. So there's pressure from that stance as well, where again, everyone at the school is exceptional academically, works really hard, very bright, they're good at academics, and you have to find a way to keep up with them, which for me personally wasn't the easiest given my background in the academic preparation I had before Brown, but it just adds to the pressure. And I guess the last thing I'll mention about pressure before wrapping this video up is what you do after Brown. So again, like I mentioned, everyone expects that because you went to an Ivy League school, you're going to go on to do great things. And doing great things a lot of times just means getting a high-paying job or doing a job that has an immense sense of purpose and does a lot of good in the world, which is not a bad thing. Those are two very admirable and great goals, but it does put a lot of pressure on you. I know that from the moment I started my summers at Brown for my freshman summer, people were asking me, what are you up to this summer? Where are you interning at? What research are you doing? And I didn't even know that I was supposed to be working or doing an internship. I thought that most college students just chill in their summers or work a part-time job in their local town. I didn't know that people were working for Goldman Sachs or working for consulting firms or going into investment banking. That was completely foreign to me. So it puts additional pressure on you to work even harder and pursue opportunities in advance to make sure that when people ask you what you're up to, that you have a good response. And I think that that is a bit of a negative and a positive. I think it's a negative in the sense that you could be doing well and you could be living your life and doing everything right, but just because you're not excelling or you're not getting a job with the salary that your peers might be getting, you will feel like you're underperforming and you're failing when you're really not. And that can put some undue and undeserved mental pressure and stress on you, which is something that a lot of students have to learn to cope with and deal with and manage in a healthy manner. But the positive side of it is that because everyone is succeeding and doing well around you, it pushes you to get the most out of yourself and do even more. I know for me personally, all of the experiences and internships and job opportunities that I've had thus far have come from this pressure where I didn't necessarily see the need to pursue those things, but my friends were. So I kind of had a oh crap moment, like everyone else is doing this, I should get off my butt and pursue those things as well. And it's brought a lot of fruitful opportunities for me. But if I didn't have that pressure around me and seeing my peers go out and do well and succeed, I wouldn't have had the kick in the butt I needed to go out and do those things. So I think that kind of speaks more broadly to the entire Brown experience and the Ivy League experience. Um, the Ivy League is a hard place. It's not easy. Nothing is easily given. It might seem that way, and being in the Ivy League definitely comes with a lot of privilege. I won't deny that, but it is hard, and it's especially hard if you're a minority or a black person or a black man or a black woman. It's not an easy place, and it takes a lot of hard work to survive and to do well in those communities, in that environment. But if you are able to get past the hard parts, to keep working, to do well despite of the challenges, it brings so many opportunities, and it can be an immensely positive thing. So what I can say about my experience as a whole is that it was extremely positive. I learned a lot. I definitely had my ups and downs. I had my challenges. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always straightforward. I had to get out of my comfort zone and do things that I wasn't comfortable doing, and be in experiences and situations and environments where I didn't feel like I was myself and had to kind of grow up and mature a little bit. But I learned a lot, and it made me who I am today, and I would encourage anyone who has the opportunity to apply to these schools and get in to do so, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity where you can meet some really fantastic people and gain even more fruitful opportunities following it. But that is my experience. I'm gonna end this video now because I could talk about my experience at Brown forever. I don't even know how long this video is gonna be once I edit it, but I'm sure it's already pretty long now. But again, that's my personal experience. I do want to make more videos like this in the future, just talking about how it was for me in the Ivy League. I do want to talk about what it was like being a student athlete, because I know that's different than people that were there just as students, and just share more with you guys. But thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.